Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Change Leadership Conversations. I'm glad to be back having this conversation today with Shireen Furman and Greg Bowler. I'm always glad to have this Change Leadership Conversations. So, just to kick it off a little bit, wherever you're joining us from, I want to say welcome and invite you to drop a note. So if you're listening to this live, if you are watching the replay, just drop a note. Tell us where you're joining us from. Are you joining us from Toronto? Are you joining us somewhere in Canada? Are you joining us from somewhere in the US? Or somewhere in Europe, Africa, wherever you're joining us from, we always want to know where we're getting listeners from. So please, please, please drop a note and drop an emoji as well. Whether you're listening live or whether you're listening to the replays, we want to connect with you and we want to engage with you. And again, I want to tell you a little bit about the Change Leadership. So we are a community of change leaders. It's all about how we lead and respond to change better and faster, especially in today's disruptive business environment. Like I mentioned, we're a community of change leaders. We have our change leadership conferences each year with this year's conference coming up on May 29th. We have courses, we have content, so we have loads of free downloads. Just always go to our website and you can get a free download as well. And one of the things that we're excited about is the Change Leadership Awards, which we launched last year, and going into this year is going to be our second year. So always excited about that. And we're going to talk more about that a little later today. We have Greg and Shireen, who are part of the Change Leadership Awards committee. But just a little bit about, one of the key things that are important to us and also important to why we're doing the Change Leadership Awards is because we believe that a change leader is not about position or title. And that's why we're going to be talking today about what it means to be really leading change, whether from the front scenes with a position or title or without the position or title, or whether you're leading change from behind the scenes. You are still a change leader, and we're going to look into what that means today. And just to get us started, I'm going to jump straight to Greg. And Greg, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks for having us.
So
Sure.
let's, and Shireen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome.
Forward.
Awesome. I want to start off, maybe I'll kick off with you, Greg, by telling us a little bit about yourself. I want to learn about you. I have learned a little bit about you actually, because only yesterday we were having a discussion. But as a member of the Change Leader Awards Committee, you've chosen to volunteer your time. But I also know that you're a leader who leads from the front. You're a visible leader, but when you're volunteering for the Change Leader Awards and a member of the committee, it might be behind the scenes that you're leading. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and also your motivation behind, being on the Change Leader Awards Committee?
Sure. Thanks, Yvonne. Happy to do so. And hello, everybody, wherever you are. So my name is Greg Voller. My background, I have two sort of core professional roles right now. One is what's shown here on my description here. I am a member of the board of directors of the Association of Change Management Professionals and have been honored to be a member of that organization since its early days. Also, my day job, what I do on a professional basis, I am a senior director and team lead for a strategy activation firm called Gagan McDonald. And in that role, I lead a team of awesome consultants and change leaders in their own right in terms of how we serve clients with their various strategy activations. So really that combination of all of that, and Yvonne, to your awesome intro, is that we're looking to, particularly from all angles here, is how are we continuing to embrace and advance this perspective that many of us are leading change within the organizations we serve. And there's an opportunity and need to continue to expand that view. From an ACMP perspective, we look to be conveners of wherever change is happening around the world. And so the more that we can have individuals who are influencing and impacting other people, recognizing that what you're doing is leading change, that's a great way that we build advocacy for that then as well too. So that's what drives my passion, my interest, my enthusiasm to support the Change Leadership Awards.
Just even listening to you, I have a question that is just, I feel like asking that question, but I just want to go to Shireen for a second. So, Shireen, please introduce yourself and tell us about, your motivation behind being on the Change Leader Awards committee.
All right, thanks, Yvonne. Hello, everyone. My name is Shreen Fairman, and I am a volunteer with the Change Management Institute. And, it's very interesting how I arrived at this opportunity to be on the Leadership Awards. I started my career a few years ago, and it actually started with the Change Leadership. And it was more of an interest, and I was like, piqued my interest. But after taking the courses and getting to know Yvonne and the team, and then just expanding my career, it just blew up, and I was just so much more interested in being a change leader and this field of change management. So when the opportunity came up and I said, I feel alone. I feel sometimes I work in a silo. On many of the projects I work on, I'm the change manager or the change leader, and I don't really have a team, or, there's not someone that I can feed ideas off. And I started to look to see what communities were out there, and I came across the Change Management Institute. And the people that I connected there really provided a platform for a community and for a way of expanding my career and my knowledge. And because I had so much passion for change management, the opportunity came up to say that they're looking for someone to volunteer. And so I thought, I have my plate is full, but I'm interested. I want to excel the field of change management and really embrace and get to know more about it. And I think the best way to learn and to be a part of something is to volunteer. So I got into that role, and as this opportunity came up, and I said, well, hey, I have a connection with the change leadership, and I feel that my passion for how I got to where I am now and to be a part of that, the Change Leadership Awards, and meet with the team members, and just, it's a way of giving back, and it's a way of showing my appreciation for being so embraced into this community. So that's really where my passion lies. And a few years ago, I really loved it so much that I decided to go out on my own and become a consultant. And it's been an amazing journey so far, but really and truly being part of a team and part of a volunteer group really makes a difference in how you grow as an individual, but how you grow in your field as well. So
Awesome, awesome. And so we have Greg and Shireen, who are two members of the awards committee. We have another two members who are leading from behind the scenes that are not able to join us today. We had Amy, who was supposed to join us last minute. She's down with, the cold, the flus, and, everything is happening. Like when it says it rains, cat and dogs, and everything is happening. So, Amy, we do miss you. So, just a shout out to there. We're looking forward to having you join us today. And so, Greg, I want to go back to you because you said something which was really key. And it so ties into why we're doing the Change Leader Awards. Like I said, we have the Change Leadership Awards, or the Change Leader Awards, which started 2 years ago. We're in our second year. The awards, nominations for the awards is closing actually on Tuesday, the 30th, April 30th. This is where you can vote for, be it an Innovator Award, a Change Excellence Award, a Youth category, Community, DIB, and community. And it's really about recognizing everyday change leaders, which was very key for us. In your world and in what you're saying, and you've been in this area for so long, how do you see the role of change leader evolving? Because before, it felt like a title or position. You had to be an executive, in an organization to be regarded as a change leader. But there was something you said that just, set something, a spark in my brain, where it was like everybody in the organization is leading change. And you spoke about being an advocate. So how do you see that title and role change leader evolving? What have you experienced, especially being part of ACMP2?
Sure. Well, I think also almost where I'd like to start, Yvonne, is that, let's have a lowercase version of the word change and a lowercase version of the word leader, right? And so it really, in my experience, anybody who is a change leader is somebody, as I mentioned earlier, somebody who is able to influence and impact others and to some degree. And what I think is evolving more and more is that the discipline of change management is growing in so many places around the world, and that's being change professionals like Shireen doing what you're doing out on your own, and the team that I lead, that I described. We're out helping serve our organizations. With what we do, though, within those organizations that we're serving, is that we're meeting fascinating people that are change leaders, and maybe they just don't know that. And maybe it's because the reality is that they have just high degrees of empathy, and they're able to understand the challenges that people are wanting to overcome. And a great change leader, not by role, but by outcome, is always having high empathy and always understanding what people are looking to overcome, and then able to do something with that, as well too. So I see that it's both to the discipline of change management is growing. It's being guided by principles. It's being guided by approaches and by experiences, and it's how it couples together with those people inside the organization that is really influencing change and differences in terms of how people are doing things and approaching things and believing things then as well too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You raised some really interesting points. Would love to see what Shireen's perspective in it. So Shireen, who's a change leader?
Well, anytime I think of a change leader, the first thing that comes to mind is mindset. Like, part of being an effective change leader is you have to be willing to change your mindset or have a broader mindset towards a situation. So it's not even just the field itself, but how you approach and think of things and think of life and how you react to situations, whether positive or negative. And like Greg has said, is also being an influencer. So when you, a lot of times when we say misery likes company, but even in the sense that if you're a positive person and you have a positive mindset, and your goal is to seek to create change and to be able to understand change, your passion and your empathy towards people who may struggle with that can influence them to see things in a different light. So I always think of mind transformation and change transformation. It's more than just, a field or a job or a title, like we've mentioned before. It's really, for me, I think of it as a mindset and a way of living, that when situations arise, whether it's professional or personal, you're able to look at it from a wide lens and be able to react and shift and pivot if you need to, right? The last few years, we've seen where we've had to change, we've had to pivot, we had to look at things from a different perspective. So really and truly, that's how I think of when I think of a change leader, someone who's able to change and pivot and see the future.
It's interesting you use that. And to me, the word that comes to mind right now is agile. So a change leader is somebody who is agile.
We had no choice.
That ability to lead, to be responsive to change. And it's also interesting that, Greg, you reminded us that, a change leader is somebody with a small letter C, small letter L. Why do you say that? Is that in line with wanting to take away title and making it a title or position and just saying it is who you are as a person?
Yeah, exactly, Yvonne. A change leader can certainly be, and is often somebody who has position, power, if you will. And it's not an either or. And it can also be an individual who is just deeply connected within an organization, that when a new challenge or crisis maybe arises, the go-to person that an organization has for information. What does maybe XYZ person think about that? So somebody who has influencing power, if you will, as well in the organization, has incredible change leadership opportunities then as well too.
Yes, yes. I like that you say that they're the go-to person for information, because one of the things, like when we're teaching our change leadership course, we say one of the characteristics of a change leader is somebody who empowers others.
Yes.
And sometimes people think, oh, I don't have position or title. How do I empower others? But you just hit the nail right there. When you said is the source of information, is the person that empowers others with the information and the knowledge and the tools to be able to respond to that change.
And I would also add to that, somehow individuals are able to influence because they've built up some level of trustworthiness.
Yes.
That is, it's maybe not, it could be a combination that is just unique, a unique view and ability to demonstrate trustworthiness. And I'm not saying that's in comparison or competition to others. It's just a unique level of trustworthiness that draws people to that then as an opportunity as well too.
And that level of like trust. I was speaking to someone the other day, and they said, you know what, their position is business analyst, but they found that they were always being called into steering committee meetings. Even every meeting they wanted them there. Even though, like the steering committee meetings was the executives, the leaders, the project managers, those key people, even the change management person. But this person was always being called into different meetings that had senior executive leadership, just because of the trust that they've been able to build within the organization, and be that trusted person that people reach out to say, we want this person here because they provide the information. And I just want to say to anybody listening, if you have any questions for folks that for Shireen or Greg or myself, just drop it in the box. We want to answer your questions, and we want to connect with you and want to engage with you. So put in your questions, your comments, your thoughts, and we'll share that. Greg, I want to stay with you and ask the next question. And just because, like I said, we're doing the Change Leader Awards at the moment, which, we're going to announce the winners next month, May 29th. And one of the things that we get from people are, some people get nominated for this, but they don't consider themselves change leaders, but somebody else has seen them as a change leader. And that's where, when we talk about leading from the front and from the back, that's where you have those very visible change leaders and invisible change leaders. How do you differentiate between the invisible change leader and the visible change leader? What's the connection? What's the difference?
Well, I think a lot of it is just, in some ways we have fashioned this notion that that change is a constant state in many organizations, and here I'll put it to answer your question, Yvonne. I'll put it in this context: is what organization that any of you are a part of in the audience that isn't saying somewhere in the last day or week, oh, we're doing another change, or change is all around us, and change. And so that's just the norm. And there was a point in time, and I got enough years on my tachometer to say this. There was a point in time where that was really, I think, that much more significant compared to now. It's just a constant, right? In terms of just, it's the way that organizations work. It's always evolving. So now, Yvonne, with that in mind, to answer your question, is that it's the application of just recognizing this is just the way that organizations work. People at the front, if you will, they have more of a responsibility in terms of what is the strategy, what is the decisions, the choices that need to be focused on in order to realize an organization's goals. People leading from behind are, if you will, are recognizing, but that people are always making choices. And one of my great mentors in change, Janine LaMarche, I will always have this statement in my mind cemented. She always said, people always, always, always choose if, when, how, and to what degree they will change. And people leading from behind will always, always recognize that people are making those choices constantly. Always. And so they're helping guide that, helping influence that at every turn, at every opportunity, even though they may not be recognizing it. They may not even say, oh, wow, I am a change leader, but they're being thoughtful in just their human interactions with others about supporting those choices as well, too.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And Shrina, I want to come with you on this one while we're still talking about what it means to be a change leader. You're a change manager, you're a change management practitioner, you're part of Change Management Institute. How would you differentiate a change manager versus a change leader? Is there a difference? You
Hmm.
have to have this question right. You have to get this right.
Oh God, the pressure, the pressure.
Pressure.
You could,
Um, my definition, I would say, of being a change manager is the managing of the change. And
Hmm.
yes, you might put things into place, and um, you influence or you create, a strategy or a plan.
yes.
However, as the lead managing it, you can put our plan together, but if those that are responsible for that change do not think like a change leader or do not embrace what you put together, then that change won't happen. So
Hmm.
it's easy to say, or I wouldn't say easy to say, but we might say that, oh, this is the title, but even in the role, I don't look at it and say, well, I'm above anyone else, or because I'm the lead on it. My focus is to ensure that whatever I strategize and put together is understood and received by those who have to embrace the change.
Hmm.
So I really look at it in the sense that, yes, I'm managing and making sure that, everything is in line and so forth. But at the same time, I'm also ensuring that those who are the recipients of the change understand it, embrace it, even become, put more of the onus on them as the receivers or the participants of the change, so that they look at it from that perspective to say, oh, this we've gotten this guidance, but yes, this works for us and this makes sense for us.
Hmm.
So I look at it in, it could be twofold, but definitely whenever I think of that, I'm thinking the change leader is the actual person who has to embrace the change and communicate the change, and whatever, they're part of that. It's part of how they are going to work and live. If they don't grasp it or don't accept it, then all the management could be there, but it's not going to be
Yeah.
effective.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Greg, I see you smiling. What are your thoughts on that? The difference between
Well,
a
I
change
just
manager
love,
and change
I
leader.
think, yeah, I'm sorry for overstepping there. Shireen, I love that. And I think that, as we are, collectively building this discipline around change management, absolutely, Shireen's comments around how we look at the orchestrated set of activities and processes that need to be interdependent with each other to make that. There is sort of that management component of that,
Hmm.
where I think that that sort of it's a both and, right? So a change manager and a change leader, I think they have more common attributes together, though, in terms
Hmm.
of their responsibilities. And Shireen, as you were talking, what the phrase that came to mind is that a change leader, and for sure a change manager, but they both those roles have the responsibility to create clarity from chaos,
Hmm.
right? And part of through an approach that's driving clarity, part of by helping people see something that they haven't seen already, and or what that means is more certainty for role. That's part of a leader, if you
Hmm.
will, within that as well too. So it's how these elements all work together that are so incredibly necessary
Hmm.
together in order for you to affect and sustain change.
Yeah. So cool. So great to hear your perspective. And just to add to that, two little ways I differentiate it. Actually, not two little ways, but a couple of ways I
Go for it.
differentiate it. One is I always differentiate it, the art and the science,
Yeah.
of
Mm,
and where the when it comes to the change management is the more tactical, is the more
mm,
systematic way of doing things, is the change strategy, change management plan,
Mhm.
the change assessment, very tactical. And that's where you have a lot of the science in it. And then you think about change leadership, and that's where you have a lot more of the art and the skills, to be able to do that. Because as a change manager, you have to be a change leader. You cannot be a change manager without being a change leader, but you can be a change leader without being a change manager,
that's right. Yeah.
right? Because as a change leader, you have the skills to be able to drive those changes forward. And there's so many times that you see as change managers, because I'm a change manager as well, background, you see as a change manager, It's easy to come up with, follow that template, follow that model, follow that methodology, do all of those things, but you don't have the skill sets and the ability to be able to lead those changes you've designed.
Right.
Exactly.
You don't have the change leadership skill set to be able to implement that change strategy, Shireen, to what you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
build all of that, but you don't have the change leadership
Yeah.
skills to be able to lead that change
Yeah.
forward. And that's why, many times when people think about themselves as change, are you a change leader? Because they are not that change manager doing change strategy. They don't have change management practitionership, which is a word like change practitionership. I don't know. I think
You're making a new word.
Making a word.
because they don't have that change practitioner or this, they think, oh, I'm not a leader. But how are they leading and influencing change? How are they communicating that vision? How are they being agile, to your
Right.
word? How are they being an advocate? Greg, you mentioned, being an advocate earlier of the change to make it happen. How are they bringing all of those skills together? What impacts are they making in their organization? To me, that's who a change leader is.
Yeah.
Somebody that is able to take something and make something out of it. And Shireen, I also liked what you said, it's about the people. The change isn't really about us. I usually say we're not the heroes in the story.
Right. Yeah.
It's about making others, and you spoke to that about making others be able to embrace that change and move forward with that change. So for anybody listening right now or to the replay, I want to see, what does it mean to be a change manager versus a change leader? And we want to hear your perspective. It might totally differ from what it is that you're hearing us say. Okay, so Greg, we're not going to mince our words here. We can talk about, what it means to be a change leader. You don't have to have position or title.
Yeah.
But gosh, position and title helps.
Of course.
Let's call it spade a spade.
Of course.
So how does somebody lead without title or position and still call themselves change leader? How can they lead without position and title and still be a change leader?
It's at the risk of maybe restating, I think a couple of the things that are always there is your continued focus on listening, on demonstrating empathy, of building connection, and affiliation, of being consistent, and your orientation towards being more, I'm going to call it selfless than self-focused. I think these are all ways that build trust, frankly, back to that earlier comment. And Yvonne, one of the things you just said about it's the mentality of heroes, of not being heroes. You sparked right ahead in my mind. So another mentor of mine, Meryl McDonald, who is the namesake of the firm I work with, she talks so much about actually is that great change leaders, regardless of position, power or not, you have a mentality that you've moving away from heroes to being hosts for others, from heroes to hosts, and thinking about how you are, as any great host would do, you are bringing people in, you are recognizing needs, you are beyond acknowledging those needs, then you are doing something as a great host to fill those needs to the extent that you can. And so it's just I think it applies to your question, because I think a change leader without position power can still very much have that mindset, that attitude, that approach of being hosting, if you will, and being and just be very consistent with that then as well too.
Yeah, the top one that stands in mind for me is, you said influence, the ability to influence, and that's it. You can influence without position or title. How many times have you seen whereby there's somebody without title or position in the organization, but they always prefer you go to that person? Go to that person, and they just have so much influence. And you just raise so many great points there from that building the trust and the empathy and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, Yvonne, could I just follow up on that? What I find fascinating for I'm going to call it change professionals, and one of our great strategies, right, is to form change networks, to help guide and support, be part of, if you will, a change effort. What I find fascinating is that many organizations go through an approach and a process where they nominate folks that actually have position power within change networks, and where they're not including the actual true influencers. I what I would subscribe to folks that a most awesome change network, change champion group is very much including those individuals who are great influencers in the organization, great change leaders, but not necessarily those folks with power, with role power, if you will.
Yes, that is so very key. We have, thank you, Tanya, for your comments. And Paula, Tanya said, I love that change management is science and change leadership is art. And Paula says, very true, position and title doesn't always help. It's not always about position or title, you know, in the whole thing, there. Okay, Shirin, let me take this to you because I'm sure you've experienced it. And just going back to what we're talking about, being the hero or being a host, or another word I like to use, being a hero versus being a shepherd, you know, being that, you know, guy. You know, here. So, I've just learned something from Greg, host, you know, kind of like using that one as well. But when you go into an organization and you being a consultant and you're always being called to lead change, is it not easy for change managers to fall into the trap of being the hero? Because guess what? They say, oh, we've brought you in. And Greg, I'm sure it happens to you. We brought you in. You're the expert. You're the person. So they're almost making you the hero. And sometimes subconsciously, we now fall into being that hero, right? We feel we know the answers. Oh, yes, you have to do it like that. So, and then when they push back on something, you say, oh, they're being resistant to change. Like you taking a step back, like what Greg says, that a change leader is somebody who listens.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? So how do you stay in that place of not being the hero and just realizing, yes, I am the change leader, but I'm not the hero?
That's right.
Why you put you on a pedestal to be the hero?
You know, you must have been reading my mind because I wanted to speak on that, because it's a very different when you're the consultant and you're only in for a certain time. And like you said, you're hired to come in to help manage the change part of a project or a transformation. And you know, earlier on in my career, that was kind of like, yeah, I want to, you know, be that lead one and I want the title. But as I've progressed and I realize it's really not about the title, it's building those relationships and, you know, making those connections, because I'm only there for a certain time. So if I come in there and, you know, demand things and whatever, it's not going to be received, or it's not going to last, or it won't be something that will carry on. I want to whenever I'm working on a project, to create something that's sustainable. And so you get to understand who you're working with. You find out those key influencers, those ones who are the decision makers or those who can influence others. I always found, you know, and I even in my recent role now, those are the connects that I need, because when I'm gone from the contract, they need to carry on with what was instilled and what was implemented. So I find that, you know, yes, in the beginning, you know, they were like, oh yeah, we're so glad to have you. And, you know, I haven't even done anything yet. And it made me realize that, okay, they're putting a lot of onus on me. But the first thing that I did is, you know, didn't come in there like, oh, I'm an expert. I may know about change management per se, but I don't know about your company. I don't know about your department. I don't know what your mandate is and your project. And that takes time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that takes time. So whether it's 6 months or a year, I feel that you really should come in humbly and be able to say, okay, yes, I'm here to share my expertise. However, I need to know, how do you do things? What's the culture here? How do things get done? How do things get communicated? You know, I spend the time making connections with those who are not only the influencers, but those who are the decision makers, and maybe not even the decision makers, but those who are going to be actually involved with ensuring that this change is effective. So I find that building those relationships, even if it is for a short time, it makes much more of an impact, because when my time is done and I'm, you know, I have to hand over everything, we've built that rapport, we've built that communication that they feel confident that they're able to sustain as things go on. But I also feel like, yes, I've made an impact, but I don't leave like the hero, because really and truly, they're the ones who are going to continue on. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I look at it from a different perspective, not so much in the beginning, but as time goes on, you start to realize. So I really like the small C and the small L for change leader, because it could be anyone on the team. It could be
Mm,
anyone in the community. It could be anyone that catches on to what the change is, and they are good. Because one of the things I found, and not to prolong it too much, is when I work with people who are a little bit resistant, I capture their attention first. I'm like, you don't just say, why are you resistant, but what do you see is wrong here? How would you do things? And
mm.
when you engage them into the process and have them give their input, a lot of times they're the ones that you need to reach out to first, because they are going to influence everyone else. So it's almost like the hardest nut to crack is the one that says, hey, this is going to work. This is good. This is how it should be. And, oh, I see the value in it. Then everyone will follow suit.
Thank you for sharing that. Here's a comment from Douglas. He says, change is people centric at the heart. Putting people first is selfless and not seeking heroism. That is it, not seeking heroism, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to seek that. Greg, I want you to tie what Shireen just said about, putting the focus on the people, putting the
Yeah.
focus of pulling people in. And I was really trying to tie that into what it meant to be a host versus a hero. Because I was in my mind, I'm trying to tie it in. And it's okay, like a host, is that a host whereby, like, if I'm welcoming people into my home, I'm more welcoming of their perspective, I'm more welcoming of their views, I'm more welcoming of their thoughts, versus, trying to say, yes, it's all about me. So can you tie back what you said about host to
Sure.
what Shireen is? Because I'm going to go away from this, discussion today to learn more about, host
Okay.
versus a hero, because I like the match, host hero.
Yeah. Well, Yvonne, just think about that, what you just shared with the group here, just your verbal illustration. And think even more so about the point of view that was important to you, as you were just describing being a host of people coming into your house, your studio, whatever. Where was your point of view? Your point of view was focused on on the people. Back to Doug's point, right? Right. It was focused on the people. And what I find fascinating is that often, right, is that change leaders, they recognize there's always that perspectives matter, viewpoints matter. Something that I often talk about with organizations is that employee engagement, as a metric that most, if not all, organizations subscribe to, it was founded 6 decades ago, largely as a productivity measure.
Mm.
And employee engagement is largely, if you would go down this line, is that it's largely how organizations think about the productivity of its people, and very much from the organization agenda. That's the viewpoint of the organization. From a host perspective, if we're thinking about our people within inside that organization, well, what really matters to them? And I'm gonna suggest that actually employee engagement does not matter as much to people. What matters actually more from their viewpoint is, am I being professionally fulfilled? Right? In terms of my opportunity, in terms of my contribution to the organization, to my self-worth and the energy that it provides for me. This is not an either or statement, but a great change leader, as Shireen, I think you were pointing out, and this is where a host comes in, is that you're recognizing that the viewpoints, the multiple viewpoints matter together with all of that. Yeah. Because the agenda, in my example, the agenda of the organization is going to have some uniqueness compared to the agenda of the people in the organization. So how do you find how a great change leader finds those, and a host, to your question, Yvonne, finds those convergence points as well, too? Oh, you're on mute, Yvonne.
You're muted.
You're muted, Yvonne.
Oh my gosh, I do muted on Zoom, and I'm here now on live streaming, and I'm still muted. I was trying to also get in to look at some of the comments there, to respond to it, and multitasking. But we can see some of the comments here, and we had someone who just shared adding value creates engagement, and I was trying to look at who made that comment in terms of creating value. Made comment. Yeah, Douglas, thanks for sharing that. Adding value creates engagement. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to start to round this up. And Shireen, I want to start with you, and I'll get Greg to add to that. Is when we had, because yesterday we were on the awards committee. I'm not part of the awards committee. Let me put it there. I'm very neutral, not on the awards committee, but I
Mhm.
get to sit in on some of your meetings and see what's happening and, have some of this discussion. And in that awards committee, we spoke about encouraging people to nominate other people or for even people to self-nominate themselves, And what would be that word you would share with somebody, like, to encourage them to nominate somebody or even ask somebody to self-nominate? Because sometimes people think I'm too busy to do this, or I'm working on this project and I can't get myself around to do it. And, but what would you say to them? Because it's real.
Well, you know what comes to mind sometimes when I think of um, nominating or giving recognition to someone is, where do you see someone shining?
Yes.
Sometimes somebody's working and doing something and they're shining a light, but they may not see how bright that light is.
I like that.
And it's such a great opportunity when you can say to someone, like, you're doing a great job, or if you take it to that next level and nominate them for an award, or give a recognition through work, something that where they are just doing their job. Like, if you were to ask them, they're just saying, but I'm just doing my job. But
Mm,
you just doing your job is creating influence. It's creating an effect. It's doing great work,
mm,
because it may just look like something small, but in the long run, it is creating so much more value. And I think that's one of the words that I like to think of, is that when you're doing something and it's creating value, you may not see it for yourself, but it's creating value for others.
mm,
That's where you're making a change, making a difference.
mm. I like that. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this recording because I like how you said it, because first of all, you said it's something about recognizing the light and shining a light on that person that may not even realize how bright their light is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just really makes them stop. So when you click on that button and you nominate somebody and they receive a email saying you've been nominated by this person, especially if it's a boss or a colleague or even a friend or somebody, like, really, this person sees me as this, it makes all the difference to them, and because they're just doing their thing, but that word recognition is so key. Wow, thanks for sharing that one. Greg, what about you? What would you say?
I don't know if I can say anything better than Shireen. I mean, I think it was brilliant, and I love that aspect about shining a light. And in what you've, if I'm almost just going to restate what Shireen said,
Mhm.
is that you've made impacts on people whether you've known it or not.
Hmm.
And so that's important, and it's those micro experiences
Hmm.
that are so meaningful and yet they're the pieces that often go unnoticed, that they don't have the light shining on them.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
Shireen, your point, which is just really such incredibly important and powerful for, again, how people choose to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can't build on anything more than what Shireen's awesome response was.
Yeah. Thank you.
That is so true. That is so true. And I think Shireen just hit the nail on the head. We couldn't have just said that better because I'm still just loving that. It's about shining the light and people not realizing how bright their light is.
Right. And being seen, like, we all want to be seen. We
Yeah,
all want to be seen.
it's
Yeah.
about making them seen.
Yeah.
And I was going to share an example, but it just felt so morbid. But I just think about people who sometimes, I mean, so it feels morbid about sharing. They're in a depressive mode. They're depressed. They feel unfulfilled. They feel as if my life is not worthwhile. I'm not making a difference.
Yeah.
And sometimes, whether through the Change Leadership Awards or through anything, I really just encourage people to always recognize and tell people how special they are. Help them be seen.
Yeah.
Like I said, so to me, this is more even important than the Change Leader Awards. It's like, is there somebody around you that is doing something great? Have you stopped to just recognize them and just say, hey, you're doing something great? I just want to say, you're really doing X, Y, Z. Because I think about the moments that, maybe I've been low for one reason or the other. And I get an email and somebody is just saying, hey, I just wanted to say this. Or somebody tells me, oh, this is how you changed my life. I'm like, really? But that just makes a difference, because sometimes it's so difficult even to believe, or it's easy to believe that you're not making a difference. I'm reminded of
Mhm.
a client I was working with. I was doing a lot of this work. I did so much work, and I just felt that, what, this work is wasted. It's not going to be of value,
Mhm.
because this client felt a little bit difficult. When I say difficult, they felt a little bit, they had really high standards. Let's
Yeah.
just put it this way.
Yeah.
They had certain expectations. So they traveled and they came back, and I just thought, it was going to be like, hey, Yvonne, we need you to start from scratch. And they came back and said, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant. This is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been waiting for. And it made a whole load of difference. But guess what? They didn't have to tell me that. They may not have said it. They could have just thought, it's her job. Let her do it and
Exactly.
move on. It's
Yeah.
her job.
Yeah.
But it really made a difference for me to want to prove for me to want to do more.
Mm.
And that's the power of recognition. So I really want to say, Greg, Shireen, you guys just nailed it. As we wrap up, I like to end with you all. So what's your one word, Shireen, that you would share to anybody listening as we wrap up today's conversation, when we think about leading from behind the scenes and on the front lines as well, and being a change leader?
Wow.
Well, okay, it doesn't have to be one word, it can be a phrase.
No problem.
Wow, there's just so much content that we covered, but I think I will go back to like be the light, like be the
Yeah.
light. Don't doubt yourself. You may be making a difference to someone, even if it's one person. Then you've done your job. You've done your job.
Yeah, thank you. And Greg?
So I'm going to go back. Shireen said something right from the get-go, talked about mindset. So my one word, and I am not an excellent French speaker or speaker of the French language, but I'm going to use the word changement. And so for those of you that are here's where I learned that word, by the way, is that when our daughter, when she was young, going through her ballet exercises, she would learn that changement is part of a ballet. When it's moving from fifth position, where your feet are in one direction, you leap straight up, and you end up with your feet in exactly the opposite position. And in the English spelling of that is changement. And well, I think it's a powerful symbol. It's a powerful way of an image of thinking that what we do as change leaders is that when leap into the air, there's so many things that could happen, but what we're doing is we're trying to land in a different place, in a different position. And it's the mindset that carries us through. And so I think that's just a powerful way for a change leader to think about what she or he is doing, is the mindset, the approach to how they're helping people change in midair, if you will, and to get to a different position.
I like that. Helping people change mid-air, because you really, really feel like that when we think about all the disruption and everything that is happening. But I want to say,
it's that mindset piece.
it's that
mindset,
mindset, and really that one from being that host instead of being that hero. To support people and be open-minded. Greg, Shireen, we could go on forever, and I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for coming to talk about what it means to be that leader who is change leader, who is leading from the front lines and from behind the scenes, and just to show that we're all just as powerful wherever we find ourselves. Thank you for being on the Change Leader Awards Committee. Very, very valuable. And for everybody listening, if you know that one change leader or that one person, who do you want to shine a light on today? We invite you to go to thechangeleadership.com/awards and just vote that person you want to shine a light on today. And you know what? There's this quote I like, if sometimes you don't have to wait for the world to acknowledge you, because if you wait, if not, you might be waiting forever. You can also self-nominate yourself. Start with yourself. That self-awareness and self-value. Nominate yourself for an award or nominate somebody else for an award. And the link, I believe, is in the comments as well. So check out the comments. And for anybody watching the replay and anybody listening, I invite you right now to just drop an emoji in the comments. So drop one emoji that you want us to leave with today, or one word. Okay, let me make life easier. One emoji or one word. that you want us to leave with today. So on that note, I want to say thank you to everybody that's been listening to us, whether on Facebook, whether on YouTube, and right here on LinkedIn as well. So I want to say thank you, and have yourselves a great weekend. So bye for now.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you. Thank you. Make it a great one.